In this video, I'll show you exactly how I animated this logo. And trust me, it's much easier than it looks. Logo animation can feel like one of those skills only a few people truly understand. But I think we often make logo animation seem more complicated than it actually is. In this example, it's pretty obvious that every letter should be on a different layer. But I also needed to separate the individual parts of the wing. Once everything was nicely organized on its own layer, I moved into After Effects. I imported the Illustrator file as a composition and converted all the Illustrator layers into shape layers. By the way, when I'm working on logo animation, I usually prefer using a frame rate of 24 frames per second. I decided to start the animation with the wing. To animate the outer edge, I drew a separate shape path and made it red so I could clearly see the difference. The important thing here is to draw the path so that it completely covers the original layer. Then I added trim paths to the red stroke and animated the end value from 0 to 100. For the motion curve, I created a clear speed peak somewhere around the middle of the animation. After that, I used the red stroke as a track matte for the original layer. This way, the animation we created on the stroke reveals and animates the original wing shape. I animated the other parts of the wing using a much simpler technique. First, I moved the anchor point of every piece to the bottom left corner. Then I created a scale keyframe and moved it slightly forward in time to define the end of the animation. For the first keyframe, I turned off constraint proportions and changed only the first scale value from 100 to 0. The motion curve needed to match the first animation exactly, so I simply copied and pasted it using the Easy Copy plugin. This way, the layer doesn't scale proportionally. It only grows in one direction, which gives us this unfolding effect. After applying the same setup to all the wing layers, I slightly offset them on the timeline so they appeared one after another. Once everything was ready, I enabled 3D for all the layers and pre-composed them. Then I pressed R to open the rotation properties and added keyframes to orientation, X rotation, and Y rotation. For the final position, I set the last orientation value to 323, X rotation to 23, and Y rotation to 135. Once again, I copied and pasted the same motion curve so the entire animation would follow one consistent rhythm. Next, I found the exact point where the motion curve reaches its peak and split the wing pre-comp at that frame. Then I duplicated the second section to create the other side of the wing. On the duplicated layer, I changed the orientation value to 36, X rotation to 14, and Y rotation to 30. Finally, I added a slightly gray fill effect to the original wing layer. This creates a subtle difference between the two sides and stops the wings from looking completely flat. After that, I couldn't really find a better way to make the wing to fly, so I turned to null layers. Basically, the first null controls the duplicated wing layers and starts the wing movement by changing their rotation. Then there's another null above that, and this one controls the overall transition from the black background to the white background. Once I set two position keyframes to create the upward movement from bottom to top, I shaped the motion curve so it had a nice strong peak. At that peak moment, the background colors switch, and at the same time the wings also change color and turn black. To make the movement feel a bit more alive, I added a small line detail. There's nothing too fancy there either. It's just a simple trim paths animation. While the wing is flying, I added a black solid layer and used the mask to create a subtle vignette. This gives the scene a bit more depth. Now, how do we bring the wing back to its original position? Very simple. I went back to the rotation keyframes we created earlier, copied them, and pasted them in reverse order. So the last keyframe becomes the first one, and the first keyframe becomes the last one. The second wing also disappears again right at the peak of the movement. Then I scaled the wing up and added the text animation. The text animation is very simple as well. First, I drew a rectangle over the area where the letters should appear. Then I used that rectangle as a matte for all the letter layers. After that, I animated the position values so the letters entered the scene from above, starting outside the rectangle. I also used the Motion Tools plugin to add a little elasticity to the movement. And that's it. I told you it was going to be easy. If you enjoyed this kind of short tutorial, make sure to subscribe. I've got some even better ideas in mind. See you in the next one.